be worse than Satoshi selling off at
Today
this
we
point.
have a very special guest. We've got George from CryptosRUs, a crypto veteran here to answer all the pressing questions. What's the all-time high for gold mean?
What it's telling me is FOMO is a real thing.
Is there even going to be an altcoin season?
My opinion has changed on altcoin season.
And the most important question, do you think the Bitcoin top is in? If you love Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you're not going to want to miss this. Hit the like button to support the channel. Now let's get into it. George, this cycle is obviously different for Bitcoin. We had a new all-time high before the halving. We have ETF institutional adoption. Where are we at in this bull run? And do you think the Bitcoin top is in?
Oh no, I certainly don't think so. I think we're in a really good spot, even though the market sentiment seems pretty bad and bearish right now. People just forget that we saw this last year, 2024 and 2023. We saw basically a quick rise up at the beginning of the year in 2023 and 2024. And then we had like 6 to 8 months of sideways downward movement. And all of a sudden in October, right around mid to end of October is when things turned around and we went up and formed a new high. I think we're like right there. Obviously, conditions are a little bit different now. Bitcoin is much bigger. We have macro stuff to worry about. We worry about the Fed and some geopolitical tensions with trade wars. But overall, I think we're in a good spot. People are just bearish. I think way too bearish because they either forgot about the last few years or they simply didn't live through them. And maybe some of these people have only bought alts or bought at the top. But I certainly don't think we're over. I think that in the next 2 months, we're going to see a lot of excitement.
I agree. I think we have a lot of catalysts coming forward that we're going to talk about. But like you mentioned, sentiment is bad right now. And I've realized we've had a lot of new people come into crypto. I know some of them has joined my private community, but talking to them, a lot of people came in 2024 and did go all in on altcoins. So for anyone that did do that, go all in on altcoins, seeing the largest liquidation event of all time, taking alts down to levels we did not think would happen, at least throughout the bull market. Is everything on track for altcoin season, or has your opinion on the flow of Bitcoin to large cap altcoins flowing into mid cap and smaller caps, has that changed?
Yes, my opinion has changed on altcoin season. And here's why. The institutions and the ETFs, we never had either one show any interest in Bitcoin and crypto. All previous cycles were led by retail. And, retail, of course, makes sense when you have FOMO, you have a bubble top, and then people start looking at other ways to make money because they think Bitcoin's too expensive or something like that. But this time around, it's different. Ever since ETFs came out, institutions started buying in. And these big institutions, they're not like retail. If they buy in for a long haul. They're looking at the next 10 years. They're not buying Bitcoin because they're going to time their clock and say, oh, okay, we're going to ride it up until December and sell it out. That's just not how it works. So you just look at how many billions are locked into ETFs right now. And then how many billions of Bitcoin, $1 billion of Bitcoin are locked in with Saylor's company Strategy and MetaPlanet and others that have adopted a Bitcoin treasury. So it's going to be different. Because of this, I don't think these large institutions are going to say, well, let's sell off Bitcoin and let's go buy some, I don't know, Doge. Okay. It's just not going to happen. So I think retail is actually, it's controversial take, but I actually think retail, like the retail market, is going to be led by memes. Like, I really think the meme market is what's going to drive majority of the money into a lot of these big cap coins, like the chains that we see, right? But also, I think that introduction of spot ETFs for these chains will also bring a lot of money too. We know there are pending ETFs for like Solana, XRP, Cardano, and several other chains. I think, yeah, there will be money coming in from them as well. But also, as the market gets better, a lot of retail will FOMO into the memes, and memes will lift up the chains that they live on, and people that are speculating will look at, okay, what's outside? Like, what else can I invest in, right? So yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Going back to the original question, has my views changed? Yes. And I also think that not everything is going to be coming up to their previous high. Like 2021 altcoin season was pretty good. I don't think every project is going to reach their 2021 high. I think some will surpass, let's say, like the January high that we saw, but not everything will do well.
It's a great point. The cycle is definitely different, and I agree that not everything is going to pump the same like we see in the last cycle. We have a lot more cryptos, a lot more narratives, and we know that narratives lead price action. What are a couple narratives going forward for altcoins that you think not a lot of people are looking at, but could be the ones that do outperform and make new highs?
Well, I kind of mentioned, I think the two big narratives are the ones I just mentioned. Meme coins, do not ignore them. Community coins, because like the new generation of like crypto people, okay, traders or investors or whatever that are buying on Robinhood and Coinbase, they're going to be looking at what's hot. And memes always get very hot. We know that. And they have certainly driven a lot of chains to new highs. Like, for example, earlier this year, Solana was at a new high because of it. So I think that's going to be a big narrative. People are ignoring the chains that have the strongest memes, which thus means that they have the strong communities, will do very well. And also, I think the ETFs. I think ETFs will bring more institutional money into the space. I think, like, for example, ETH. Okay, ETH is like an OG chain. The ETFs have brought in a lot of money in the space, but also you have like treasury companies now, like BitMine from Tom Lee, that has bought an enormous amount of ETH. I think ETFs will also do that. I think Solana, we have seen some companies like Soul Treasuries and stuff do that. But I think the introduction of ETFs will bring more money and also cause a creation of a lot of, crypto treasuries. So I think that's also the big narrative. I think it's going to be these two. It really is. It's not about money flowing in from Bitcoin into the alts anymore. I don't think that's going to be the driver. Obviously, Bitcoin is going to always carry the market, especially with sentiment. But like the money flowing into the alts, I think it's going to come from different sources.
So ETFs is obviously a lot of institutional money coming into crypto. But as you said, retail, I do not think has came in yet to buy memes at mass or buy any of these narratives. I was actually working with ChatGPT doing some back of the napkin math. And without ETFs, without DATs, Bitcoin could potentially be 55, 60K right now, and Ethereum around 1.5K. Obviously, there is no denying that liquidity is good for Bitcoin, is good for crypto. And the ETFs and institutional money does bring that. But being someone like yourself that's been making content for 8 years, been into cryptocurrency for a long time with the belief of decentralization, is the ETFs a net positive for crypto long term as a whole?
Yes. Yes, it is. However, what I think is not a positive overall long term is large asset managers like BlackRock getting involved. Okay. ETFs overall is good. It's just another way for people to get to buy Bitcoin. There's a lot of funds out there for whatever reason, jurisdiction or rules, regulations, whatever, that don't allow them to buy spot Bitcoin. And many people don't want to deal with, or companies don't want to deal with the security aspect of holding physical Bitcoin. So they buy ETFs, right? And it's just another way for them to get exposure. And ETFs, the funds, in turn buy Bitcoin. So they have to worry about the security and everything like that, right? But guys like BlackRock, we know, don't have a good reputation. They never did. What they do is end up trying to like dominate whatever sectors they get in. and it's usually never a good thing. BlackRock obviously has taken a huge interest in Bitcoin. Larry Fink is one of the most bullish people right now. He has endorsed Bitcoin with a number of interviews. They have done investor decks, investor presentations, and getting everyone involved, right? So they're going all in on this. And long term, I don't think that's a good thing. Long term, they may end up controlling so many of the crypto companies and miners and hold so much of supply, they could actually manipulate it. But short term, I think it's good. It's endorsement. It shows validation. So others are willing to jump in because of it. So I think ETFs overall net positive, but big and large asset managers like BlackRock, long term will be a net negative.
It does concern me when I'm watching CNBC a couple years ago and Larry Fink's on there saying how they wouldn't touch Bitcoin for anything when it's 60,000, and then next thing you know, they start talking about these ETFs. Like, was that true what you were saying earlier? And then I seen Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy bought some more Bitcoin, and they're up to over 600,000 Bitcoin, which is a few percent of the overall Bitcoin network. And so, is your take on MicroStrategy and BlackRock, are they just going to hodl truly forever? And what would happen if MicroStrategy did start selling off?
I think MicroStrategy selling off or Saylor selling off would be worse than Satoshi selling off at this point. Honestly, I think he has the biggest influence in this space now, because it's a cascading effect. He doesn't hold as much as Satoshi right now, but at one point he will. I mean, he's already at close to $700. He'll get to $1 million eventually, right? But it's not just that. He was the one that led the revolution to create Bitcoin treasuries. And he has proved that it does work, right? For a long time, it seemed like it was a joke to Wall Street, but now it's not. But if something goes wrong, right? Because he has come out like 4 other companies, and basically it's he's utilizing all of them to raise more money to buy more Bitcoin. But if somehow something goes wrong and this system that he has created required him to actually sell, okay, where he's forced to sell, then this whole Bitcoin treasury idea all goes away. Every single company that has adopted it will be sold off. And I think it was going to be a huge, huge event. It'll be way worse than FTX collapsing, way worse than the liquidation event that we saw a few weeks ago. It would be the biggest swan event, and give Bitcoin a black eye for a long time.
It would probably be a spot as well, right? The liquidation event we've seen recently was all perpetual, being liquidated. But if Saylor started selling off, I think a lot of retail that hodled and a lot of these big DAT companies.
It's not retail. I don't think it's retail. It will be all institutional sales. ETFs will see massive outflows. And right now we know, like you said, right, most of the gains have been from the institutions, and institutions have led this cycle, no doubt. If they start selling because they are afraid that the Bitcoin treasury strategy is bad, that would be a huge, swan event. But again, that's assuming, though, I don't want to sound all bearish like it's going to happen. That's assuming that something does go wrong, that something catastrophic forces him to sell. Very well could be that he has created an ultimate strategy that no one has ever seen before, and it makes him a trillionaire. It makes MicroStrategy one of the richest companies on the planet because of all the Bitcoin holdings, and he may be 100% correct. And if that's the case, then we have nothing to worry about, right? So we're just talking about like the worst case scenario.
Hypotheticals.
Right. Hypothetical. Doesn't mean that I believe that's going to happen, but I do think him selling would be the worst thing for Bitcoin.
I think it'll be interesting if they ever get under cost basis. This morning I seen they're at a current cost basis of 75K. You know, that's probably when I'm looking at the chart, that's like the last line of resistance or like the lowest I could see us going in an event or in a bear currently. And
Right.
so it'd be very interested to see how it works if they ever do get underwater or under their cost basis.
It has happened before. It has happened before. Since 2020, he started getting in at 2020, and he bought a lot towards the top of 2021. So during 2022, 2023, I mean, he even joked around where he tweeted pictures of himself wearing a McDonald's hat. He was under before, but you know, he has made his strategy a lot more sophisticated now with a lot more companies and stuff, which he claims that he never has to sell Bitcoin. He'll never get liquidated. He's never worried that even if the cost basis of Bitcoin goes below what his average is, he wouldn't have to sell, right? So if that's the case, we got nothing to worry about.
Nothing to worry about. But that's a very big statement that it would be more detrimental or more of a black swan than actually Satoshi moving or Satoshi selling his Bitcoin. So obviously, Wall Street is here. Wall Street is in crypto. There's no more going back to the days of just retail. But we've got a lot of layer ones right now, and a lot of them are going after the institutional money, tokenization of stocks. And we have Ethereum, obviously, with gas fees that are a little more expensive, but it does seem like Wall Street is leaning towards Ethereum. But you also see XRP, Solana, different tokenized stocks coming on chain. At the end of the day, when we fast forward 3 years, 2 years, whatever it is, which do you think will be the overall number one chain for Wall Street?
I think it's going to be Solana. You know, and I'm not saying Solana will stay up there forever, but you know, Solana is definitely the one that's going to be the go-to. Ethereum's, I mean, not to rehash the same things over and over again about Ethereum, but it's still true. Ethereum still can't scale. They're still trying to figure it out, even after how many years. When there's something hot going on, like some new NFT mint or something that's going on, the chain congests and you have $1,000 gas fees. Okay, that just shows that it can't handle any dApp that has volume or users. You know, for crypto, what we're all looking for is one day to have a dApp, a social dApp or AI or something that can live on a blockchain and be used by millions of people. We don't have that right now. The closest thing we have are DEXs, okay? But in order for this whole industry to evolve and thrive and have alts decouple away from Bitcoin is by having these killer dApps. And you can't possibly make something like that on top of Ethereum right now. You just can't. So if you look at like the daily volume, daily transactions, daily volume, even DEX volume, NFT volume, anything that's measurable, Solana has already surpassed ETH. The only two things it has not surpassed is TVL, and then and also like the developers, I guess, the number of developers. They're still staying strong to ETH because EVM, quite frankly, is a large ecosystem. You have other L1s and L2s that are EVM based, right? So surpassing the number of developers, EVM developers, is going to take a long time. But everything else, Solana already surpassed. So that's definitely going to be the next darling child. And plus, we know Soul memes. I mentioned about memes and communities, right? They will come back and become strong again. And that's going to drive a whole lot of new volume to it. And Solana itself is not staying idle. They are also upgrading their chain as well, right? So I think it's going to be Solana. But again, with that said, doesn't mean that a new chain can't overtake it. There are a lot of new chains that are even faster and more cost effective, right? But they're kind of empty highways at this point. There's no users. They could be the greatest projects to ever existed, but without the users, it's kind of like a 100-lane highway with no cars on them, right? So the problem is with Ethereum is it's like a 1-lane highway with 1 million cars. Solana, I would say it's probably like a 10-lane highway. That's probably, 500,000 cars. No, it's probably more than 1 million cars. But you have a lot of these other chains that are like 100-lane highways with one car on it, right? So that's the thing. So will Solana be up there forever? No. But yeah, I think it's the next big one.
It's a great point. The largest argument I hear against Solana being the means of tokenization of Wall Street's, and I'm someone that believes everything's going to be tokenized, birth certificates, medical records, is that there has been network outages with Solana, and Ethereum has a 100% uptime ever since TGE. If there was another chain, like I look at something like kaspa, that's extremely quick, but like it's exactly what you're saying. It's a huge highway, just nobody's on it right now. The users are not there. But if people were concerned, if Wall Street was concerned with potential network outages on Solana, is there a couple that you could see challenging Sol for the tokenization of Wall Street?
I mean, the two others that are closest would be like BNB or XRP Ledger. Okay. But I don't think, honestly, because of BNB and Binance connection and a lot of the controversy around it, I don't think Wall Street will ever fully embrace BNB. Other countries may, and BSC, the chain may continue to do well, and the token could continue to go up. But will it be fully embraced by Wall Street, by the US? I would say no. XRP Ledger is one that can, but XRP Ledger also has its limitations. I think it's limited to like 1,000 transactions per second, which is way better than Ethereum. But again, if you're trying to build a killer dApp with millions of users on there at once, right? Even 1,000 transactions per second isn't enough. So I don't know. I haven't kept it enough where I don't know if they're actually upgrading or not. But because of Ripple's huge treasury, they also have a lot of lobbyists, and they're American based. I think Wall Street could definitely embrace XRP and XRP Ledger in a big way. They're also into RWA, like you said, and because of their treasury, they could do a whole lot with that. There's other chains too. AVAX is American based, SUI is American based. There's a lot of other chains out there, and that could be really good. But they're kind of empty right now. That's the thing, right? So I think the top three of those have to be those. I mean, there's a lot of Cardano guys up there. People believe in Cardano, American based. A lot of people love Charles Hoskinson, but from what I know, from the developers I talked to, they said it's difficult to program with Haskell, and they have their own problems with scaling, which they're trying to figure out. And Charles is trying to make it extremely decentralized with governance and everything. We'll see how that goes, right? I still believe that decentralized projects still need strong leadership. You can't have everything voted by the community. You still need to make some crucial decisions, right, from the leadership group or the leader of the project. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when they go truly decentralized.
That will. I'm a big fan of Charles, big fan of Ada. That's actually my biggest argument against Ethereum and Vitalik, is that I don't think there's that strong leadership at the top as much. It's more DAO based and things like that. But we're seeing a ton of institutional money flowing into digital gold. However, that is not what's catching the headlines, with Bitcoin currently around 110,000. It's still over the magic 100K number, but overall, all-time highs in crypto, all-time highs in the stock market. Right now, gold is screaming red flags, in my opinion. We hit 4,300 for gold. Gold is often looked at as a safe haven in times of bad financial life in the world. So what does gold tell you right now? 4,300 people standing outside in lines to buy physical gold.
What it's telling me is FOMO is a real thing. Okay. I understand why some people are turning to gold, because the debasement of the dollar, fears about, inflation and tariffs and trade wars and all this stuff, right? But those things have always been the case. Like we've seen that over the last few decades. But right now, I think it's just true FOMO. People are saying like, oh my God, gold is going up. So I need to load up on gold. And it shouldn't be. Gold should never be like that. Gold has always been like almost like a stable coin for the stock markets. Okay. Like people buy gold when they think there's going to be volatility and the markets are going to come down because there's no other stable coin other than if you just put into the dollars or, fiat. Right. But now people are treating it as a real investment and they're FOMOing in. But I think it's going to end just like anything else. When there's a ton of FOMO, there will be a bubble top and it comes down. We saw that with gold before when it was previously like hit 2,300, a few years ago, and then it kind of leveled back down and then it started going up again. I think we'll see the same thing with gold. Like interesting enough, today, gold and silver are both tanking. Gold is down 5.5% today and silver is down 7%. That should never be the case. Like gold normally goes up. If it goes up over 1% a day, that's a good day, right? Like 2%, 3% is unheard of. For it to go down 5%, that shows you how much FOMO there was already to bring it up so high, right? And I do think that the bubble will burst. It'll, come back down to some even level, and then it'll actually be good for Bitcoin and crypto.
I seen it down 3% earlier, and I was like, wow, that's extremely volatile for gold. Something screaming bubble to me. But I want to switch over a little bit and talk about something else that you've recently been doing. Clash. You're playing a video game while live streaming. This is a pump fund creator coin to the best of my knowledge. I'm just looking at some of the statistics. It's very, very impressive. Over 6,600 holders, still holding at a $28 million market cap at a time when market sentiment is overall fairly low, as we talked about. And there's giveaways within this. I've seen multiple people were winning half a Solana, 0.3 Solana. Tell us, what is Clash and where did this come from? And I've got some gameplay up here from your X for everyone to look at.
Yeah. So this is based on a very popular mobile game called Clash Royale, which has actually been out for 9 years. So for a game to survive that long is actually quite amazing. But it got really popular recently. Like, kids, teenagers, young adults, and even guys as old as me are playing. So my kids actually got me into it. It's actually a good way for me and my kids to bond because these days they're growing up and they do their own things. But this is actually one thing that we do have in common. So we do bond over this, which is great. But then, I heard, that the Pump.Fun platform, right, started after they introduced their tokens. They started these rewards, creator rewards, for people to live stream. And I've always thought about, okay, how do I expand CRU CryptosRUs beyond YouTube and everywhere else, right? So I originally wanted to stream CryptosRUs on there, but then I realized you can't stream without creating a coin. You can't do it. That's their model. You have to do it. So then I'm like, I'm not so sure I want to create a CryptosRUs coin, right? So I'm like, okay, why don't I try it out with me playing Clash Royale? And then I'm like, what's a good name for it? So I just called it George Plays Clash Royale.
Straight to the point.
Yeah. So I started streaming, and for the first week, people didn't believe it. Like there were people that actually came in and said, is this for real? Is this actually George? Is this not like AI or a fake version stolen from somewhere and put on here? People didn't quite believe it or understand it. But after about the first week, people then started hearing me talk about it more. And I say, I'm going to be streaming. And then finally, like it just clicked for people. So then we had, after about the first week, we had some tremendous gains with not only the price, but more importantly, the holders, right? Because, I'm not a big meme guy. I've talked about memes in the past, but the majority of my audience are hardcore Bitcoin guys. And, they're just kind of like weird about this. They don't know if I'm taking this serious or this is a joke or if I'm going to do this long term, right? But after I show them that, a lot of them started coming, right? They started watching me, and I got a lot of them addicted. But how I'm making this different than every other meme coin is I'm actually adding real utility and something that I don't think anyone else is doing. And I'm not talking about just creating a DEX, because most big memes, what they do is they end up creating a DEX and they say, okay, we have utility and that's it, right? But a lot of other memes, it's just cheerleading. And there's nothing wrong with cheerleading, okay? You need cheerleading. You need people to really believe in a project and spread the word. I get that. But I feel like you need to have more. So that's why I started having these prize tournaments, because I know people love to play, right? But how do you incentivize people to play and be interested in the token, the Clash token? So I started doing prize tournaments, and they're very well received. Hundreds of people come in every Friday. We have one every Friday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. People come in from around the world to play and compete, and these prizes are quite substantial. Every time I have it, I give out at least $4,000 or $5,000. And then also on top of that, I've been doing giveaways for Clash holders, okay? Rewarding people for holding Clash. But here's the kicker. I don't reward in Clash. The prizes are not in Clash. The prizes are in Sol. What does every other meme do when they do giveaways? They give it away in their own token. And what ends up happening is most people that get it, they sell it off. And it creates actually an endless sell pressure, right? So I'm doing things differently. When I do giveaways, when I do prizes, they're paid in Sol. They're not paid in Clash, okay? And we have a real community building aspect to the game with these prize tournaments that people really love to participate, and giveaways, and just watching me play every night. I've been playing on my side channel, I Am George, and on Pump.fun. And we have built this, right? Like you said, we're at 28 million. Today, we're a little better, up to almost 37 million. But we grew so fast, and it's been an amazing journey. I think it's only been like 5 to 6 weeks. And we built a holder count of 6,600, and we grow every single day. And if you compare that to all the other Sol-based meme projects, the holder count has been doing this during our bad times. We're the only ones that's actually going up. And because of the things we're doing, and because this is a project that's backed by me, I'm not an anonymous dev, people can trust that I'm not going to rug or do anything suspicious, right? And this was all launched fairly on Pump.fun. A lot of people got in very early. There was no insiders, no cabal pushes, no KOL pushes. And that's one of the most amazing things about this project. You don't hear anyone talk about it. It's not spread on X. It's not like all these other famous launches where you see like 10 influencers push, right? I did this organically myself, and we have built a true community around this. So that's the difference.
That's what I was about to say, is that I personally don't even look at this as a meme coin. I know it was launched on Pump.fun, but this is the best or the most true community coin that I've ever seen. And hats off to you for reaching an 80-something million market cap and having a holder growth of over 6,500. That's huge. And you're really pioneering the way for what they're calling creator capital markets. These tokens that are launched on Pump Fun, Zora's doing tokenized post, and also creator coins. What is your overall take on this new meta for people to earn revenue? Like you said, this was a fairly launched coin. And the reason you could do that is because rewards on the back end are very good, or that's one of the incentives for people to do this. They don't have to be cabal backed. They can be community backed. And with the volume comes dev rewards for the fees. So what is some of advice to people that are wanting to launch their own coin and build a real true community like you have done?
It's just, I think this comes down to there's too many people that give up on things way too quickly. And it's not even about launching memes. Let's just say even what you and I do, which is content creation, right? There are a lot of people that start a channel And during the good times, they'll do good. And then during the bad times, they disappear, right? Or they get lazy about it and they don't do a video for weeks or months, right? It's not going to work. You have to treat things seriously, like a job, right? That's how you build a core audience. That's how you build that trust with people, right? There's too many people in this space that have launched memes and have just given up on them. Obviously, when it's good, it's good. But then when it's bad, they just give up. Or they never had a plan to begin with and they just got lucky, right? So I'm doing things differently, right? I know how people have launched before. I know most successful memes, either it's very highly controlled or they have big pushes, right? And then they cash out and then that's it. And then they move on to another one. That's why there's certain people on X that are famous for just launching endless memes. And somehow people still buy into that, right? Because people don't really care. They just want the pump and then they leave, right? So I'm trying to set an example among creators that you can do something fun and lasting, right? Without just having it being a quick pump and dump. And I don't think any other creator have done that before. I mean, Alex Becker, he tried out Pump.Fun first. He created a streamer coin. Since then, he has not done anything with it or talked about it. It was just like a test or a joke or whatever, right? And others have done the same thing where they have done it as a joke or as a test or whatever, and then they gave up on it. The funny thing is, and I like to call out Pump.Fun, right? I got to thank them, first of all, to, that they created this platform and they allowed me to do this. But to this day, they still don't recognize us for whatever reason. If you look on Pump.Fun, we are now like the top, like we're one of their top meme coins, right? Or community coins by market cap. We're one of the most successful already. Yet we're never recognized. They never say anything about us on their socials. They don't recognize it on their trending tab, right? It's almost like they cater. They want to cater to people that create pump and dumps and move on. They keep highlighting all these other projects that have not done well, yet they keep ignoring us. And I even DM'd Anon or Anon or whatever, one of the founders, and he ignores us. Like, I just don't get that, right? Like, we're actually trying to do something legit, something that's long lasting, and we're actually not getting the support from them. But regardless, they pioneered the thing and they have done very successful, they've been very successful, and I appreciate them for doing that. But still, getting some love would be better.
It seems like they would want to do that because, like you said, Becker came on, but it wasn't, it was short-lived. And this is a true community that's here for a long term. It sounds like what you've done different than everyone is you laid out a structure for it. It wasn't just the George coin, because you already live stream every day on YouTube. You already make crypto content. You would kind of lose purpose in that. I feel like it's you're staring at a large piece of land and you don't know which direction to go. Versus with you, you're doing these tournaments. You're doing it once a week, 8 p.m. Friday night, right? So everyone go join George, play Clash. But it seems like having that kind of purpose is really the recipe for a long-term successful project. And I'm really surprised that Pump.Fun hasn't supported it more publicly, because there's been a lot of hesitancy for very large creators. We see a bulk of smaller creators my size to larger than me, but still relatively small, dropping coins, right? And then they just live stream doing random stuff all day. But seeing top tier 1 A class, KOLs or influencers really coming on, bringing this community, it could just bring a ton of attention to Pump.Fun. So it's very interesting to me that they haven't done that. But I don't know, maybe he'll respond under this clip, and Alon. So let's see.
So.
Hey, let's see. We're tagging him in it. So we've talked about institutional money, all of that, ETFs, all the large institutional money with MicroStrategy, everything coming into crypto. But we are going to see retail come in more and more. And they're probably, like you said, going to go into memes initially. But what advice would you have for anybody that just got into crypto a couple months ago, or maybe they round tripped or lost a lot of bags last cycle and have just came back for round 2? What would be some advice to somebody new in crypto from one of the largest crypto YouTubers, George?
Like, most people don't want to hear it, but I think everyone should just still start with Bitcoin. Okay. Bitcoin still gives plenty of upside, but the volatility has died down so much, you don't have to worry about like a 50% drop within a week. Okay. You're not going to see that. I think a lot of people get discouraged because they see these large drops, they get scared, they leave, right? That could happen with memes. Could even happen to alts. We saw alts go down 50, 60% within, minutes when we had that liquidation event, right? But not Bitcoin. Bitcoin went down like 10%. So I think most people coming in should start with Bitcoin. Okay. That's like getting your feet wet a little bit, right? Learn why Bitcoin is so different and why it's long-term hold. Then start looking at all these others. Why is there Ethereum? Why is there Solana? Why is there BNB? Okay, what's different about them? And then after you understand, you could dip your toes into them. And then after that, you could look at, okay, what are the popular things that's going on? Maybe DEXs, right? Or DPIN, or AI plays, or memes. Then start looking into that way. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. For most retail, what they do is they go on Robinhood or they go on Coinbase. They sort by the biggest gainers of the day. And they'll see something that's up 50%. They're like, I got to FOMO into that. Right? And then the next day it goes down 40% and they're in the red. And they're like, all right, screw crypto. I'm getting out of here. Right? That's unfortunate. That's what 99% of the people would do that. But I think at least a very small percentage of that, they will continue to hold their bag and they learn from their mistakes. Because I have heard of people, I've met people that said, I got pulled in because of Shiba back in 2021, right? And I've heard people say, I even though I lost money, I'm holding my bag, but that got me to stay in the game. And I started looking at other things. And that's how I found your channel. So there is a small percentage of people that will stay even after losing money. So at least there's that, right? But, the right way to do it is start from the top and then work yourself to the bottom. But most people just start at the bottom, and that's how they lose it all and get discouraged.
So for somebody that was just getting into crypto and they did want to get Bitcoin as their first bag, but they're not comfortable with self-custody, and that's something that I preach a lot. Do you think ETFs are a better route than holding Bitcoin on an exchange?
No. Because at least if you're holding Bitcoin on Coinbase, you have the ability to transfer it out. Okay. Even if you never do, you still have the ability to do it. And you can learn. Coinbase has the base wallet that you could transfer to and stuff like that, right? At least there's the potential of learning some of these things like self-custody. By buying an ETF, you don't have that. It's a new concept. Like you buy ETF, it stays in your brokerage account. That's it. You can buy and sell. That's pretty much it. But if you at least hold Bitcoin on exchange, you can see how, okay, you could trade Bitcoin for something else. You can buy and sell different kind of crypto. And you have the ability to withdraw, which is a very new concept for people that are investors, because that's unheard of. That's like withdrawing from Charles Schwab into Robinhood. That just doesn't exist with anything else, but you could do that with crypto, right? So I would still advise buying Bitcoin on Coinbase versus just buying ETF.
It sounds like focusing on a good tier one exchange though, right? Because we have seen exchanges go under plenty of times in the past. Well, George, I just want to say this has been great. It's definitely been a pleasure of mine. I've been a fan of yours for a very long time. Is there any last words you would like to say to the Finance Freeman family? Anything about the Clash token or anything that you are working on with CryptosRUs?
Yeah, well, so thanks for the interview. I think right now while we're recording this, there's still this like bearish sentiment. I honestly believe this will pass, just like all the other bearish sentiment times that we've had. So don't be so bearish. Continue to educate yourself, hold on and DCA. That's what I always preach. I think that's still the right strategy. When it comes to alts, you got to be careful in terms of what you're DCAing into. Not everything is going to come back up to like 2021 levels. So whatever we have said today, I think pay attention to those things as the catalyst that will drive them up. And as for Clash, I'm just going to say I'm going to keep pushing forward. The community is strong. I really don't see why this can't be $1 billion community project, because we're building such a solid foundational base during the bad. Now imagine the good. All the other top memes, they basically done the same thing. They built a community while it's bad, and then during the good times, they pumped up to 500, 800, $1 billion. And I don't see any reason why we can't do the same, led by me as, you know, like the main person, as the driving force that is not anonymous, that has my reputation and everything that we have with the tournaments and giveaways and the potential partnerships I'm going to build. I just don't see why we won't go a lot higher.
I don't either, and I'm excited for every step of the way, guys. Obviously, you all know CryptosRUs over on YouTube, but go check out the Clash token and join the live stream Friday, 8 p.m.